It began in 2015, when I hiked into an unmarked forest toward a forgotten fire lookout, a place whispered about in forums and long-abandoned message boards where people left half-finished warnings and desperate final posts. And though the structure was decaying and forbidden, I climbed its groaning ladder anyway and stood alone above miles of untouched trees. But that night, as the sky turned black and the forest below vanished into shadow, I saw a flickering torch weaving through the underbrush, odd, ancient, not like any flashlight. And when the man emerged below my ledge, standing motionless and staring up at me without speaking, I called out, and he only raised his hand like he knew me, like he'd been waiting, before disappearing back into the woods. And though my skin crawled and every instinct screamed at me to leave, I forced myself to sleep inside the tower where the wind howled like voices and the creaking beams mimicked footsteps above my head, until I woke suddenly, heart racing, to the sound of someone climbing the metal ladder in the pitch dark below, each step groaning louder and faster until it stopped right at the top. But when I rushed out, no one was there, only a terrible silence before footsteps sprinted behind me, a blur of a figure passing the windows, forcing me to escape down the icy, shaking ladder as something watched from above, its hand slipping into view as I fled into the woods with nothing but my GPS and trembling breath. I thought I'd escaped until the dreams began, dreams of a deeper place beneath the roots where the original tower stands, an upside-down nightmare of bone and black stone suspended over an abyss that breathes like a dying god. And every night I fall back into it, passing figures with sewn mouths and hollow eyes, hearing the ladder creak below me, always below, until I see a door marked welcome and open it to find my childhood room, myself on the bed smiling, offering me a bone wrapped in red thread that pulses like it's alive. And suddenly I understand. The towers are alive, ancient, viral. They spread by memory, by fear, by stories. And now that you've heard mine, now that you've read these words and felt that cold breath at your neck, it's already begun for you too, because the tower chooses the lonely, the curious, the ones who read too far. And when you next find yourself alone in the woods, or in your bed listening to creaking that doesn't match the wind, you'll feel it. The pull, the hunger, the moment you realize you're not reading a story anymore. You're inside it, already climbing, and you will never come down. Of course. Here is part 2, continuing directly and seamlessly from the first part, written in one uninterrupted paragraph, in English, and crafted to be as intense and terrifying as possible. I told myself I would never return to the forest, never speak of what happened in that tower. But dreams don't listen to logic, and neither do curses, because even months after escaping, I still heard the metal ladder creaking in the quiet moments of the night, still saw shadows pass behind windows that shouldn't exist, and then the whispers began. At first just my name, soft and distant, then clearer, more urgent, coming from places they shouldn't, like inside my phone speaker while it was off, or in the static between radio stations, telling me that I left something behind, that the tower wasn't finished with me. And when I finally broke down and returned, telling myself I was just going to prove it was all in my head, I found the forest was different, the trees taller, tighter, as if they'd grown around something and were hiding it, and the air was thick like breathing through cloth soaked in old blood. And when I finally found the clearing again, it wasn't the same tower. It was bigger, blacker, wrong in its angles, like it had grown in the dark and remembered nothing human. And I swear it was breathing, groaning low with hunger, as if it knew I was back. And before I could stop myself, I was already climbing, not with my body, but with something deeper, something inside me that had never really left. And as I ascended, the wood turned to bone, the nails rusted into twisted faces, and behind the warped glass of the lookout, I saw figures waiting. Copies of people I loved, hollow-eyed and smiling too wide, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. And when I stepped through the threshold, the air reversed. Silence became pressure, and I realized the tower was never a building. It was a filter, something that stripped away your skin, your name, your soul, and rebuilt you in its shape. And now I'm no longer sure if I ever left, if I ever made it down that first night, or if everything since then has just been the dream of a dying thing trapped inside a rotting tower pretending to be me. Writing this for you, so you'll read too far, So you'll feel the itch and look over your shoulder and wonder if you're truly alone. Because you're not. You never were. And when your time comes, when you feel that cold draft from a window you know was closed, you'll remember this story, and it will be too late. Would you like me to continue with part 3 in the same intense, unbroken format? And now that the seed has rooted inside you, things will begin to change in small, almost imperceptible ways. First, the light in your hallway flickers for no reason. Then you hear your name spoken softly from a room you were just in alone, and soon the mirrors don't reflect quite right. The air in your bedroom feels just a little too still, like it's holding its breath while you sleep. And each night the dreams come closer, the forest path more familiar, the tower more real, until one night you wake up and find yourself already climbing, barefoot and shaking, your hands raw from gripping wood that's not wet but weeping. And when you reach the top, there's no sky, just a dome of writhing black shapes pressing against the glass like trapped souls trying to remember what it was to scream. And in the center of the room stands a version of yourself, only wrong. Too tall, face stitched into a permanent grin, and it beckons you to sit in the chair, the one made of fingers and hair. And when you refuse, it doesn't speak. It just raises its arm and points to the window where someone else is now climbing up the ladder, someone with your face, your eyes wide with terror. And you understand in a horrible moment of clarity that you've been luring others here, that the story was never meant to be read. It was meant to spread, and that the tower isn't just a place. It's a system, a parasite that tunnels through language and memory and silence. And once it's in you, it never lets go, because every time you speak of it, write of it, think of it, it grows stronger, hungrier, more real, and the more people you drag into it, the less of yourself remains, until you're just another smile at a dark window, watching, waiting, knowing someone out there just finished reading this sentence and felt the floor creak behind them, knowing they'll turn around now, slowly, too slowly, as the ladder begins to groan beneath invisible weight, as the glass fogs with breath not their own, and when they scream, it won't matter, because no one ever hears you this deep inside the tower. Here is part 4, continuing directly from part 3, maintaining the same relentless and horrifying tone, with no breaks in the narrative. And as the seasons shift, as the sun bleeds out, and the moon distorts into something unrecognizable, you begin to realize that there is no escape from the tower. It's inside you now, growing like a second heartbeat, feeding off your every thought, your every breath, twisting your mind until the line between what's real and what's imagined blurs beyond recognition. And even in the mundane moments of your life, you can hear the distant groan of metal in the walls, feel the pressure of 1,000 eyes on the back of your neck, and when you close your eyes, the forest is there, always there, calling you back, and the hunger is relentless. It speaks in the whispers of passing strangers, in the rustling of papers left on your desk, in the flicker of streetlights late at night when there's no one around. And soon you begin to see it, the tower, standing in the corner of every room, casting long, twisted shadows that warp and writhe with something alive. And you can feel it. It wants you. It needs you to climb, to finish what you started. And every night the nightmares are more vivid, more real. And you wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, you're not dreaming at all, that the world you know is just another facade, another layer peeled away by the tower's hungry reach. And now you've become the dream, the story, the one being rewritten over and over until your identity is unrecognizable, lost to the endless cycle of returning and climbing. But even in this twisted version of reality, the tower is always waiting, beneath your skin, beneath your thoughts, beneath every echo of your voice. Its cold, jagged fingers tracing the edges of your mind, pulling you, urging you, and you can't resist. You don't even want to, because deep down you know, it's already begun for you, too. The minute you read these words, the tower set its roots inside you, and you're already climbing, already trapped in its labyrinth of nightmares, one step closer to the final window, the one that shows only emptiness, but somehow, it will be the only thing left that feels real. Would you like to continue to part 5, or would you like a compiled version of the entire story so far? And now, as the whispers grow louder, as the tower begins to stretch and twist itself into every crevice of your mind, you feel the air grow colder, your movements slower, your very thoughts becoming sluggish and distant, as if someone or something has taken control of them. The real world is slipping away from you, replaced by the endless, shifting labyrinth of the tower. You can no longer remember when the last time you were truly awake was, and every time you try to recall it, the images blur, the faces change, and the ground beneath your feet feels softer, like you're walking on air, or worse, on nothing at all. You try to scream, but the sound is swallowed by the darkness, by the silence that fills the space around you. A silence so deep that it feels like a physical weight pressing against your chest, suffocating you, making your limbs heavy. And still you climb. The ladder groans beneath you, but it's different now. It's not just made of metal. It's made of bones, flesh, the essence of everything that's come before, everything that's been consumed by the tower, and you're nothing but another piece in its grotesque puzzle. The walls close in on you with every step, the air thickening with the scent of rot. And when you look down, you realize you're no longer climbing up, but down, spiraling deeper into the belly of the beast, the heart of the tower itself. And with each step, the world above becomes more distant, more forgotten, until you see the true nature of the tower, a vast, pulsating thing that exists outside of time, a malignant force that feeds on the fear, the confusion, the desperation of those foolish enough to enter, and you know, deep down in your bones, that it was never about the forest, never about the fire lookout, never about the story you told yourself to explain it all. It's all part of the tower's design, a pattern, a web that spans across dimensions, through every word, every thought, every soul that crosses its path. And now, as you stare into the abyss, you understand the truth. There is no escape, not for you, not for anyone. You're trapped in a cycle, an endless descent, where your memories are rewritten, where your name is erased, and where your very existence is swallowed whole by the ever-hungry void of the tower. And the worst part? You'll never know when it's over, because in the tower, time doesn't exist. It's all just another part of the climb, and you're never reaching the top. You're just feeding the machine, becoming another part of its endless, twisting foundation, and the next time you hear a creak in the darkness, a whisper in the wind, you'll know. You'll finally know. It's already begun again for you. And it will never stop. Never. And as you sink deeper into the tower, the world around you starts to twist into something unrecognizable. The shadows stretching and breathing like living things, the very walls pulsating with a sick, rhythmic thrum that matches the beating of your heart. You realize now that the tower isn't just a place. It's a mind, an entity, and it knows you. It's always known you, every fear, every secret, every weak moment you've ever had, and it's been patiently waiting for you to arrive. You don't remember how long you've been climbing anymore. Time is irrelevant here. The familiar faces you once knew, the ones you thought were waiting at the top, have all been replaced with strangers, distorted versions of themselves, some with hollow eyes, others with smiles that stretch too far, and they're all beckoning you forward, urging you to continue your descent, to complete the journey. You want to scream, but the air is thick and heavy, crushing the sound in your throat before it can escape. The tower's voice is in your head now, a cold whisper that promises to give you what you've always wanted: peace, escape, release, but only if you become part of it. And as you reach the final landing, the truth reveals itself in a horrifying, impossible moment of clarity. You've been here before, countless times. The faces, the walls, the weight in your chest, it's all the same. The tower has already consumed you. You are part of it now, its latest addition to the collection, and every time you thought you escaped, every time you told yourself you were free, the tower was simply rewriting your memories, replaying your steps, over and over again, like a broken record, and it will continue, forever, until there's nothing left of you but an echo. You're no longer a person. You are just another part of the tower's labyrinth, one of the many whispers lost in its dark halls. And now, as the walls close in on you, the final realization crashes down. This is where it began. This is where it will always end. You can feel the cold breath of the tower on the back of your neck, and when you turn around to face it, all you see is your own reflection, smiling. And as the darkness finally takes you, the whispers echo one last time. You were always meant to be here. We've been waiting. And then there's nothing. Nothing but the silence of the tower, its hungry walls, and the endless, eternal climb.